Today I'm going to be making some Bullgryns for my Feudal Guard army. I'm doing this using the Bullgryn kit mostly, but doing a head swap and a weapon swap from the Mournfang Cavalry for the Ogors from Age of Sigmar. I did this because I like the falchion look, and they're kind of like Salets. They're a mythical helmet, but they look more knightly than the tactical kind of gear that the Bullgryns come with. And this one's got a mustache, so that's cool. And this last guy has a more chubby face. I imagine he's the youngest of the three. He's the new recruit of my Bullgryns. And then here are the swords I decided to deck them out with. They're brutish, but they're not crude like the orc weapons. I am just cutting out the pieces I'm going to need. I started off with his pants down at the bottom. I have never worked with this kit before, so I was pretty excited to learn what I was doing, and you'll see here in a second I do a lot of dry fitting just because I've never seen how it goes together before. And then I thought it was funny how the bottom part of his leg is separate, but I don't know, I don't mind. I like having stuff to glue together. After I got his legs cut out, I decided to cut off his bunny slippers and glue them on. I get a kick out of the fact that these are a separate thing on the sprue. After I had his feet squared away, I cut out his torso. The only difference between the Ogryns and the Bullgryns as far as the torso goes is the fact that the Bullgryns wear armor, which I kind of like. It matches my medieval aesthetic. After I got that cut out, I wanted to test fit the head on the body, and it looks pretty good. As much as I love the tank top look, I think the armor is going to really kind of push them over the edge into medieval territory. And I like this helmet a lot. Of the three of them, it might be my favorite. Once I was happy with that, I decided to cut out the armor panels. You'll notice on the back of the back piece that there's a nice circle for transfers I might do eventually. I end up doing something different with the tread plates than just leaving them long and goofy looking, but right now I'm just cutting them out so I can get a feel for how they look. Once I had that done, I did the arms. My favorite one is the one with the Aquila branded into it. I'm not a big fan of the one with like the rings in the skin. Kind of ooks me out a little bit. Next, this is the gauntlet that the Ogryns put their hands into to hold the shields or the gauntlets. For mine, it's the Bullgryn shield. And I use the big shields because it looks the most protected and armored out of everything. I wanted to use the veteran blade guard shields, but they ended up not being anywhere close to the right size, and it looked kind of goofy when I tried it. And now we are on to my least favorite part of the whole process. I like cutting them out of the sprues because it's very clear the kind of progress you're making, and it's more like building a puzzle. And I like gluing them together because it continues down the line of making them a more complete product. But cleaning up the mold lines and trying to correct it when you over flatten or make a weird shape is probably my least favorite, unless I'm doing some kind of clipping, like to make heads fit on shoulders or arms to fit on bodies or something like that. Then I like that. But just getting rid of the mold lines is a lot of boring work for me personally. So this is where I notice my work suffers, and I have to go over and recheck and make sure I got everything because I just couldn't be bothered to do it right the first time. So the story behind my Bullgryns is that every noble house on this planet is responsible for contributing something to the planetary defense force, whether it's tanks or rough riders or sentinels or just, soldiers that exist in like the levy. This noble house, the Maguires and the Macateers, they are like Bullgryn specialists. They just have a group of Bullgryns that they outfit with armor and give weapons and then send them off to wherever the battles are being fought. After all the mold lines were cleaned and sprue tabs cut away, I started gluing my torso halves together. I started there because it was going to be the biggest piece and therefore the easiest to glue other pieces onto. I cut out a lot of the holding it together because super glue does take a minute. I didn't have any plastic glue because my local hardware store just sells crazy glue, but that's fine and good enough for me. Now I'm putting on the legs, and he's really, that 3 pieces really makes him take shape really quickly. After that, I glue on the arms, and as you can see, half the time I glue the arms first, half the time I glue the armor on first. It doesn't really matter. It kind of all fits. After his arm was on, I then glued the bottoms of his feet on to complete his, his wee little boots, give him something to stand on. And I managed to make 2 of them such that they could stand up on their own, and 1 of them such that they had to be glued down to the base. They couldn't stand on the desk all by themselves, but he was well and truly stable on his own 2 feet. Next, I'm doing the shield, and as I said, remember that like gauntlet place for the fist of the Bullgryn to go into? That's just where that goes. Oops, it's dropped a little bit, but here we go. Gluing that in, and then that curved piece goes up against the curved piece of the arm that's already in there. You can kind of see how they go together like that. Yeah. So here are the tank treads that they wear as armor, and I thought they looked kind of funny being so long, like that they're down to their knees. And my solution to kind of trim them up a bit was to cut off the bottom 2, and then take the 2 that were cut off the bottom and glue them in the spot in back where there's a hole in the back plate, and kind of use them to protect the spine and the kidneys and the stuff in the back of the Bullgryn. So here's what it looks like now that it's been trimmed down, and it looks less goofy to my eye anyway. So after this, I glued them on, and I learned that you should be trying to glue them on at the same time and not do one and the other, because it makes it fit better. But, making mistakes is how you learn, I guess. And as you see here, I'm starting to glue down the back piece, and you're going to see in a minute that it's hard to make the top and the bottom connect when one is static and just slightly in the wrong spot. So for the next 2 after this, I make sure to be gluing the back and the front on at the same time, so I can kind of line them up exactly where I want. So by the time they dry in the right spot and they're touching. So here's that back plate. I cleaned it up a little bit, and then I'm going to kind of feed it into that gap at the bottom of the Nork Dead Dog armor, and it kind of, I affectionately call it butt flaps. They're just the back armor to make him look more protected all around versus just in front. After that, I made sure that the head and the armor could fit together without, the head being popped off at the neck or something weird, and decided to glue it on. And as you can see, this is my bonehead head. He's got the mustache, so he's in charge. I think I did the same thing for my first Feudal Guard team, where the sergeant has a mustache, so he's the boss. But yeah, he looks like a fancy little gentleman now. I wanted to use this arm for him, but didn't realize that it was reverse grip until I had already cut it out, and you can see the thumb is the wrong way. And my solution to that was to cut the knife off and then put it on the power maul fist so that it would be pointed the same way, and that way they'd all have bladed weapons. They wouldn't have just the boss with the super powered electro maul. So here you see I'm starting to cut away the knife from the hand, and then I'm going to glue it onto the power maul kind of pommel. If he had his arm tucked up against his body, having the thumb the wrong way around probably wouldn't have mattered so much, but he has his arm up in the air, and as such his thumb would be on full display to the world, and people could start asking questions, and I don't feel like any of my Bullgryns need to be getting interviewed or interrogated by the Inquisition, so I just built him kind of the way he's supposed to be. And here you can see the finished project there. It kind of sadly ended up being a little less impressive compared to the actual falchions that the other guys use, but I guess I can't really complain when my plan was to give him a knife in the first place. If you are interested in Imperial Guard and my Feudal Guard conversions, please stick around. I want to make videos for things from tanks to Rough Riders to Sentinels to more of my just generic army men. I'm looking forward to all of those projects, so please stick around and see them as they come out. Thank you.